Hey everybody, it's Tom Foster here at Foster Web Marketing here for our December 2014 webinar. Look at this, the end of 2014, and what a special guest we have today. We have today my good buddy Rem Jackson, CEO of Top Practices, which is, wow, do so many things. Most importantly, like Zen-like leadership for lots of doctors and lawyers in helping them become better marketers, helping them with their mindset, helping them how to think like winners and not losers. I've seen Rem Jackson present to hundreds and hundreds of doctors and lawyers many times over the years, and am always impressed and am proud and very thankful that he joined us on this webinar today. He's a busy guy, so it's a great and fitting end of the year to have Rem Jackson on the call because he's going to talk about goals. And goals, it's a presentation and material that I've seen, and it's awesome. And it's fitting for the end of the year to start your next year, 2015, to a good start, right, Remy? That's what we're going to talk about is how to set it up.
That's exactly what's on the list today, Tom. And first of all, thanks so much for the invitation. I really appreciate it. And for me, it really is an honor to be on this webinar and sharing all this content with you and Danielle and everyone that is in some fashion working with Foster Web Marketing. I will say that I know all of the resources that our doctors and our lawyers have available to them. At the very top of the list, the very top of the list are the resources and tools and the websites. Everything that Foster does is head and shoulders above any other option that there is for professionals that are trying to grow and build their practice. But Tom, the truth of the matter is, if our doctors, if our lawyers don't have a clear vision and a clear understanding of what they want, where they want to take their practice, what their goals are, and why they want to do that, then you can have the best tools in the world, and it just won't really matter because you won't be able to tell, you won't be able to judge how you're doing. One of the questions that, you'll often get is, well, what about financial goals? We'll talk about that a little bit. How much should I be planning for, financially, even personally financially? And the answer is, if you don't know why you're doing this, if you don't know what it is that you truly are working towards, then no amount of money is ever enough because how can you tell? Having a goal of money is a loss because it doesn't ever help motivate you or get you where you want to go. It's not the things we care about. It's not why we're doing this. So this is a really important exercise for everyone to go through if they want to maximize everything that they are already investing in. And Tom, you and I have seen it again and again and again. When someone has the right mindset, when someone is clear and just gets going and executes against a very clear plan, we've seen borderline miraculous things happen in practices. And take the same kind of situation, same doctor, same lawyer, similar market, similar practices, and they don't have this set up and organized. They don't have this so they can execute against clear and definable goals, and they really don't get anywhere, and they're mainly just frustrated. We've seen that again and again. Isn't that true?
Yes, very much so. And it's funny that when you're saying that, I was just thinking about that letter we just got from Bob Battle and, the success that he's had over the years since, joining the party, I guess, with us and you and Ben and everything. And other people that we have as clients that have been very successful, like Bill Turley, one of our most successful lawyers that was bankrupt or on the verge of bankruptcy when he joined and really just set down goals for himself and climbed out. And you're right, it's not just all about money. Certainly a part of it is you have financial goals, but it's really just a mindset of setting up goals for all the different aspects of your life. And and you're right, when you see somebody that does that, they become successful over time, it's because they have their goals set out very clear. And then you see somebody else that you might have met around the same time, around the same conversation with. Lord knows this happens at shows for us all the time. And those people come back and they still aren't successful, or they still haven't succeeded because they have not focused on their goals. And it seems like such a simple thing, but it's hard to do for a variety of reasons. There's distractions, there's bumps along the way, there's things that happen that will knock you off course. But you always have to get back on course and focus on your goals no matter what. That's what we talk about with
This
our
is one of the
right.
Yeah, this is one of the great secrets of success, quite frankly. And I mean, it's an open secret out in front of everybody. I am sure that I am not the first person that anyone listening to this call has ever heard say that you should write down your goals and you should execute against goals. I'll bet you. You've heard this in your life many, many times. But here's the interesting thing, Tom. You've been in the room, Danielle's been in the room whenever we've actually asked this question: how many folks have written goals that they could produce right now in any format that they review on a regular basis? And if you ask a group of professionals like that, much less than 10% will raise their hands. And typically those folks are folks that have heard this message before from me or from us. And so here's the great secret. Almost nobody is going to do this for the reasons we're going to talk about today. It's actually easy and it's not easy, just like the strategies that we have. Easy to do, easy not to do, but it makes all of the difference. So I'm going to just get rolling here, and we're going to jump into this content. And I can't help but I must share this favorite quote of mine,
Favorite quote
by Eric Hoffer. In times of change, the learners will inherit the earth, while the knowers remain beautifully prepared for a world that no longer exists. So, the way I always kind of follow that up is say your mind's like a parachute. It only works if it's open. Nothing that we tell you today is going to be earth-shattering. In fact, nothing we tell you today you will have not heard in some form in your life, but every last bit of it is extremely powerful if you'll open yourself up and just follow in the footsteps of what very, very smart people have told all of us works. And we're going to share some of the names of those folks today so that we can, there's lots of resources. This is incredibly well written about. And, if just because somebody wrote a book doesn't mean we say, oh, yeah, another book. No, books are where we share ideas, and we share great ideas. So we'll share a couple key, I believe, books. And, Tom, all of the content that we're going to talk about today, of all of it, I would have to say very little of it is original with me. I'm a student, and I've been studying this now very intensely and teaching it for about 8 years. And this is the culmination of all of the learning and what's been actually developing while we've been working on this. Did you want to make a comment about this quote? I thought I might have heard your voice earlier on.
Well, I just was saying that it's your favorite quote, and it's so true. I mean, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, it is. And I often start almost every presentation with this quote because it matters. So another great quote, which was I first heard from David Sandler, the great sales trainer, is: a goal not written down and reviewed often is a mere wish. So I mean, I tell you, I just talked to some folks last week and asked them, about their goals, and one of these doctors said, well, I know I have a good sense for my goals. I know what they are. I've got them in my head. And that is what most of us do. We sit around and we think rather casually about this stuff and think that, just having enough, I know what my goals are. There's no way. There is no way, if you haven't written them down and really worked through this, that you're going to be able to execute against it. That's the key thing, is getting stuff done. And most of us have these, they often say that, what is it, like 80% of us believe that we have, the next great book in us. We're all ready to write a book, but very, very few of us do, because that's mostly just a way that we I don't actually know. That's the way we ruminate, and we make ourselves think, feel good by saying, oh yeah, I need to write my book because it would help so many people. But no one ever does. And that's the key here. Very few people write things down and get going. And so what gets in their way is life. What gets in their way is business. What gets in their way are the problems and challenges that we're always facing. But at the top of all of that is the fact that most of us, both professionally and personally, are not as organized as we need to be. And so we're always feeling like most of us are stressed out, most of us are overworked, most of us are very guilty about all of the things that we're not getting done, and we're just getting what has to happen, what needs to get done. So we spend most of our time in sort of emergency mode or overloaded work mode instead of in strategy, instead of planning, instead of training and teaching and building,
Right.
because we're not organized. So this is what I call, and this is original with me, this is my deceptively simple yet extremely powerful tool and for getting organized. And by the way, I want to let everybody know as you're watching this, at the end of this webinar, I'm going to show you the Top Practices goal worksheets, which have every last thing that we're going to talk about today and much, much more in them for you to be able to download and work with. And we're going to show you how you will be able to access the Top Practices goal-setting workshops, which are 6 about 20-minute workshops that I did last summer to prepare all of the attendees that were coming to my Top Practices Summit to come with their set up and ready to do goals. And I really talk about in each of these areas in more depth the main challenges and roadblocks that people face and a lot of the questions that they have. We're going to make that available to everybody so that you can access all of that later. So right now you don't have to take notes because I did it all for you and it's all set to go. So here's the deceptively simple yet extremely powerful program for getting your goals done. No surprise, write it all down. So what you have to do, you've got probably about 150 things that you should be doing. And that list includes all of the things that you need to be getting done for your practice, all of the things you need to be getting done for your accountant, for your kids, for your spouse, for all of the things. It includes things like clean out the garage. If that's on your list and you're supposed to do it, and every once in a while you walk out in your garage and like, oh yeah, right, I got to clean this. And so, it's everything. So what you have to do is you have to make an appointment with yourself. And here's the key thing. Go to your calendar and actually block it out. And I highly recommend that you do not use your weekends or your evenings to do this, because if you decide that, okay, yeah, I'm going to do that this Saturday, and I'm going to go to the library at 10 a.m. and I'm going to block out 3 hours to work on this. What typically happens is Saturday comes along, and if you're me, I find out what's happening on my Saturday when Diane tells me what I'm doing on Saturday, and that's usually Saturday morning. And so you can get derailed so quickly on your we play this game where I'm going to catch up this weekend, and then the weekend comes and we don't do it. So block out a 3-hour period as early as you can during the workday. Get off site. You cannot do this at your office. You have to go someplace else, whether it's Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, the library, anywhere where you have access to quiet, peace and quiet and comfort. And when you get there, you turn off your phone and you disable the Wi-Fi on your laptop if you're going to be writing on your laptop, so that nothing pops up on your screen. You really need to go into a cone of silence for this. And then just write it all down. Write down every last thing that you've got to do, and take time thinking about it. You just keep going. All right, what else? What else? No, there's that. Oh, yeah. And then if you're like most people, you're going to end up with about 150 things that you really ought to be doing. So you've got your list now. And it's really important that you have this list, because part of that anxiety you have, most of us wake up about 4:30 in the morning with our minds racing about all the problems and all the things we have to do and how terrible it is. And then if we're lucky, we go back to sleep. And then when we wake up at whatever time you get up, let's say it's 6 o'clock in the morning, you're not quite as frantic. You're still feeling way behind or whatever. And then you get your coffee, you get your shower, you go to work, and you just have your day. And then the next day you do it all over again. And so the problem with not having it all written down is that it's just yelling at you all the time in the back of your mind. And that's why most of us are so stressed out and guilty. So write it all down. Now the next thing you do is you assign each one of those items, all 150 of them, if that's how many you have, a 1, a 2, or a 3. 1 means this is really, really important. If I could get this done in the next 90-day period, I'm going to use 90 days now. We're going to shift that in a little bit. In the next 90-day period, if I could get this done or well on its way to being done, this would be an enormous amount of gain for me. This would be great. And very often that's like get my marketing straightened out and get everything set up so everything's working. That's, in the case of doctors, it's very often problems with electronic medical health records or writing down our procedures and protocols or our manuals or firing this person, whatever it is, you got to have all of it. Ones, and then they go down and give it all a 1, a 2, or 3. 1 is extremely important and incredibly valuable if I could get it done. 2 is it's on my list and it's important, but it's not a 1. And 3 is it's on my list and I'm not even sure how it got here, but it's on my list and it's certainly not a 1 or a 2. I'm going to have to prioritize it lower. Take the 1s, the 2s, and the 3s, take the 2s and the 3s and move them to the side and keep just the 1s. Now the problem that you're going to have is you're going to have too many 1s because everything's an emergency, everything's a priority, at least that's that way in our minds. And then do it again. So now go back through the 1s and assign what is truly, really truly a 1 of the 1s. What is a 2 in the 1s and what is a 3 in the 1s in terms of priority and the value it would bring you. And so now, and this time you got to be pretty ruthless. You need to get your 1s down to about 10. 10 things that are that important. And then when you take that, you want to look at this, and I said you should have about 10. Now it's time to really rank them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And there you have what Gary Keller, who we'll talk about in a little bit, wrote a book called The One Thing. You've now taken your should-do list, your could-do list, and you've made it your should-do list. The fact of the matter is that most of those things, most of those 150 things on your list, yes, you could do them, and somehow you've agreed that I'm supposed to do that. But in point of fact, you really shouldn't be doing them because you can only be focused on several things at a time. Why not the most important things? And so you get your could-do list, and then you look at that top 1, 2, or 3. We're going to talk a little bit later about how to execute against them, but that's what you focus on. You set the other top 10s to the side for the next, and I'm going to change this. I don't like to talk about 90-day periods. I like to talk about 12-week periods. So for the next 12 weeks, you're going to focus on those top 3 goals in 12-week periods. And when that's over, in the 13th week, you're going to review and pick the next goals for the next 12 weeks. By doing this, and we'll talk about how this is all done in a minute, this is the strategy that will get you, by this time next year, having completed at least that top 10. And the punchline in all of this is if you can really get the top 10 challenges that are facing you under control, organized, managed, which is what we should do. We should manage these things, whether they're personal or professional. If you can get those done, you will get 90% of the gain that you're looking for. That feeling of peace and organization, which can become very stressful for people because we're so used to working in a stressed out mode all the time that when we start to actually operate from a relaxed state of control, we think something's wrong. We're so unused to that feeling. We haven't felt it since we were kids. And so this is how you get there. Now we'll talk about the tools that will take you there, But this is how you get organized, and that's the very first thing that has to be done in goal setting. So I'm going to give you guys a chance to jump in before I move on to the next step in all of this.
Well, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. Obviously, we've been talking about this for years and years, and one of the things that personally is very important to me is writing it down and creating an affirmation list that I hate that word. I try to go over every day to remind myself what my goals are. That's my ultimate kind of life goals personally. And I edit it, I look at it, and then out of that really becomes the to-do list of stuff to achieve your overall goals. And I just finished a great book, Rem, that you and I have not talked about, that was a gift from Dave Fries, called Mastery by George Leonard, which is a great read about really mastering anything that you want to do or that you want to be good at in life. And it's a series of everything in your life is a series of big bumps and excitement, and then mostly routine, which he calls plateauing. And that's where a lot of the exercise or the practice that you have to do happens to achieve those bumps, which are your goals. And some of them are longer than others. You might have a goal, I want to earn $1 million. It's not necessarily realistic that it's going to happen in 90 days, but you break those goals down into incremental pieces to ultimately achieve a more realistic goal. But you're right. I mean, like something, and the way that you've broken it down is just simplifies, and that by breaking it down in 12-week chunks makes it more manageable and gives it deadlines, which are, any goal without a deadline is just never going to happen. So that's another thing too. So, I mean, couldn't agree with you more. And as I said before, that those people that I know, both personally and professional, that are goal oriented, that can focus on goals, and some are better than others. I mean, sometimes and this is not to say that you're not going to fail, or you're not going to, have a mishap, or not achieve every goal within a period of time. But too many of us will just quit and not continue on, just because, you might be on a diet, but you might have, a big night out and blow your diet. That doesn't mean that, like, oh, from now on, every night is a big night out. Right, Danielle?
That's right.
So, like, Danielle's a great taskmaster and very goal oriented about, her processes. You're a very process oriented person. So how does that work for a process oriented person, like putting your goals down?
Well, you have to put them down. I mean, if you can't just go through life and hit the squeaky wheel, just paying attention to the whatever's making the most noise at the time, because you'll never get where you want to go. And I'm reading Atul Gawande's The Checklist Manifesto right now about the importance of lists and checklists in making sure that things get done right. And this is exactly what you're talking about, Rem, is we can all have a goal, we see it in the future, but if you don't do the little steps, the little plan to get there, every day, the boring thing, like the diet you were talking about. How do you lose weight, Tom Foster? You eat fewer calories than you take in, and you exercise. It is very simple. Everybody knows this, yet there are billion-dollar industries built around tricks to help people lose weight, when it really is that simple. During those plateau periods between your excitement, when it's boring, you are eating well and you are exercising, and every day you do that, and guess what? You will lose weight.
And part of the problem is that we've turned into a society of, get it fast, whatever it is. And that's what people expect, that, as soon as you want food, it's right there for the taking. The TV and all the media, if you just watch commercials, everybody's in such a happy state all the time, and everybody's like, everything is awesome all the time. And through the ability to market and media, we show that. And as marketers, we show that too. But in reality, it takes work, day-to-day work, to achieve these goals. And the only people that will achieve them are those people that give themselves a roadmap. Otherwise, you're really just a rudderless sailboat being blown in whatever direction and being reactive to what everybody else is doing or saying, or your own emotions about something. You can distract yourself from your own goals. And Rem, like to your point of everybody's got their goals kind of in their head in some way, like I want to do this and that, but unless you really are disciplined about it, um, in terms of writing them down and reviewing them and making sure that you're staying on track and you actually have, and some people go really OCD on this where they break down a year goal into days. And you can do that, but or some kind of incremental breakdown of being able to achieve this at a certain period of time. And whether it's, I want to grow my medical practice by, 5 patients a week or 5 patients a day, whatever it is, how would you do that? And that's really, the marketing behind, and then of course the resources needed, and then of course all the pieces and parts that you need to achieve those goals. You have to consider those, and like how long is it going to take you to get there, and what are the tools that you need. So it's
Well, let me take you through the rest of this then, because that takes us really where we're headed. The next thing that I believe that needs to be done before you write your goals down is to have is to understand what your one thing is. Now, Napoleon Hill called it your definiteness of purpose. In his great book, Think and Grow Rich, there's a wonderful book called Keys to Success, the 17 Principles of Personal Achievement by Napoleon Hill. But Napoleon Hill had said, you need to have your one overriding definiteness of purpose. Gary Keller, in his book, The One Thing, talks about the fact that we need to be focused on our one thing. What's the primary thing that we're working on? And it's interesting. And when you work through the Top Practices goal worksheets, I talk about this. I highly recommend you get a copy of Gary Keller's The One Thing. And people struggle mightily with what is my one thing. And here's what I've seen as the big roadblocks with that. And it's this. The things that we value the most are typically very personal. For some folks that are listening to this, their spiritual goals are truly what they hold the closest to their heart. For everyone on these calls, our personal goals of happiness and love and our families and all that we have with that are the nearest and dearest things to us. In fact, when I do goal setting work with people, it always comes down to, at the end of the day, we're most concerned about the emotional and financial stability and security of our family and our loved ones. That's really where we're at. So when you're trying to work on, these questions about what's my one thing, you find yourself veering off onto these personal things because they're what you hold the closest. However, that's a big mistake because that is not your one thing. I spent 3 or 4 years trying to figure this out. And I learned from Andrew Carnegie, actually, who is the original successful person that Napoleon Hill actually hatched the idea to try to figure out what was the formula for success behind all the successful people of the day. And Andrew Carnegie is the one that clued me into what my one thing is. And here's what his was. Now, he didn't call it his one thing. He called it his definiteness of purpose. But his definiteness of purpose, his overriding goal, his one thing was to create the greatest steel company in the world. And he did that with U.S. Steel. And he did that in a mastermind alliance with a key group of businessmen that worked for him and others that he knew, that he highly respected. And then he managed to build this gigantic entity called U.S. Steel. That's how Andrew Carnegie did it. That's what his one thing was. So when I come back to my personal circumstance, I realized that my one thing is to turn my company, Top Practices, into the single finest company that aids doctors, lawyers, other professionals in the development of their one thing, their goals, their marketing, their plans and processes and practice management. And that is my one thing. Now, because Andrew Carnegie created U.S. Steel, It gave him the ability. It was the vehicle through which everything else happened. And it's that financial vehicle that made all things possible. Andrew Carnegie's philanthropy is legendary. There are libraries in so many small towns that were provided by Andrew Carnegie, because at the time, dissemination of information to people in the form of books was a high priority, and that was something he cared about. Universities, all of the endowments, everything that ever happened that we remember Andrew Carnegie for now, Carnegie Mellon, what else? It's because he knew what his one thing was, which was U.S. Steel. So, Tom, your one thing is Foster Web Marketing, making it the absolute finest, exemplary, legendary company that helps doctors and lawyers with their online marketing. That's your one thing, and the development of this, so that as it becomes larger and profitable, even more profitable, then what comes from all of that is through the service that you provide to others. It enables you to be able to accomplish all of the things that are very dear to you, because that's your one thing. Every single person on this call, at any time in the future, if you're a doctor and you own your practice, that is your one thing. Your one thing is to market and manage the best medical practice that exists. Lawyers, it's the exact same thing. Market and manage the legendary law firm that you have. And if you're someone that's working for one of these doctors or lawyers, then your goal is to become the absolute legendary contributor on the team, so that all of your goals and dreams can be realized through your great asset called your employment or your job. Those are treasures that we often forget what a treasure it is to be employed. So that's your one thing. You've got to get clear about it, and there's an exercise in the goal worksheets to help you find that. That makes sense, Tom and Danielle?
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's
Good.
true. I mean, you need to get some passion behind your one thing. I mean, that's really the trick, is some passion behind it. If you've chosen to be a lawyer, and whatever kind of lawyer you are, find passion within what you're doing there. What is it that you enjoy the most out of it, and focus on that. Same with being a doctor, anything else that you're doing in your own business. And the other thing is, and we can go down a whole rabbit hole with this, but get help that can offset what you're not good at or what you don't enjoy doing. Because if you can't ignore it, those aspects of your practice or your business, you can't ignore them. Like if you're not good with numbers, that doesn't mean that you should not have good accounting just because you're not good at it. You need to find somebody that is. If you're not good at managing people, leading people, but you're an outstanding surgeon or an outstanding doctor, but you're not that great at running the business, then get a good office manager, get a good person in that can do that job for you. It's going to save you a lot more money in the long run. And marketing, of course, if you're not a very good marketer at all, or if you just are looking for help with marketing to grow your one thing, then work with somebody that can help you do that, that's better at it than you. And of course, Rem here that we're talking to today is one of the guys that I count on for a lot of marketing help and mindset help. And it's just fantastic that you provide goal setting as one of the features in your coaching programs, Rem. I know that you spend a lot of time developing and helping your clients be successful. You and I are in sync with that and like-minded on what we want our businesses to be. And that's another really key thing that is helpful, is if you can find people that have the same thought process as you. That's another thing, that you're some of the 5 people that you hang around the most. And so getting around people that think like you and not naysayers and just people that are just going to bring you down.
I would echo that. If you work hard, there are going to be many naysayers in your life who tell you that there are more important things than work, et cetera, et cetera. But the way I look at it is, if you are successful in business and successful at what you do, that gives you a voice. So when people come to you for leadership, when they come to you because you're now a pillar of your community, because you have a successful business, you now have the opportunity to affect change around you. And so that's how I view success. If we are good at work, that gives us a voice, it gives us a greater presence within our communities. And that's
Yeah,
what you look for.
and gives you confidence.
Absolutely. And so that's one of the things that, and because of, my commitment to really working diligently and very intentionally on mindset every single month in top practices, and Tom, with your commitment with Foster to work on this as well, and that's the thing, folks should know that, in our coaching groups, that we're going to be focusing on this. We're going to be focused on the practice management and all of the things that needs to be done. But I want to move this forward a little bit more. So let's talk now about writing your goals. I'm going to spend a little, believe it or not, less time on that, because there's a lot that you will get when you get into the goal setting workshop that we're going to make available to you. But here's the first thing. The biggest secret I know in business is that very few people do this. I alluded to that before, but it is true. The people that I know that are very clear, have written down their goals, and have executable plans for those goals, achieve them. And then when they achieve them, then they have to go back and recalibrate them and make them bigger and better and more fulfilling. And they start to discover things that they didn't even know or think were possible when they do it. Everybody else just keeps muddling along, so every year looks like the last year, except it's just getting a little bit harder and you're getting a little more tired. Those goals should be SMART goals. I didn't make that up. Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. Specific, measurable, and time-bound are the absolute keys to that. If you don't write, and a lot of times when people work on their goals, they'll write very vague goals that have no way to be measured, certainly no timeline to know when they should be done. And that's in the material as well. And then this is how I see it. You have to have your lifetime goals, your 3-year visions, and then your 12-week executable plans in all of these areas: your personal life, your business, your financial life, your health, and your fun. Now, the business one, everybody understands and everybody gets. And everybody always starts with and focuses on, and one of the great mistakes they make is that's all they do are their business goals, because they think, well, if I do my business goals, the rest of this stuff will work. Yeah, well, you could hit all of your business goals, and if you haven't really been thinking about what your personal goals are, then you can end up like, say, for instance, Robert Mondavi did, where by the time he had accomplished many of his goals, and they were lofty and amazing and really would have been said to anybody, very unattainable goals, by the time he got there, he was alone. He had lost his family. He had lost everything in the attainment of those goals. Now, then he rebuilt it back. He became a wiser person, and I believe when he passed away, he was pretty whole in this area. But you can't lose everybody along the way. So what are your personal goals? And here's the thing. The business goals are something that we have at the forefront, that we're executing on. It's what occupies a lot of our time. But the only thing you're going to care about are your personal goals. And again, those always focus around the emotional and financial stability and security of our loved ones. Financial goals, and I don't mean for the business, I mean for your personal finances. You need to be working your way towards a debt-free life, a life of abundance and great profitability, and that cannot be ignored. Otherwise, at the end of all of this, you will not be in the financial position that you need to be in order to provide for the emotional and financial stability and security for loved ones. Your health is essential, and if you don't have your health, then I didn't make this up, folks. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And so, most of us will push ourselves and put this to the end and not focus on our health. That is a key. It's the area that every one of us has their own area of struggle. That's my number one struggle. The guy like Tom, now it's funny because I'll say Tom doesn't really struggle with that because Tom has all of those great habits that I'm sure he learned some of them or all of them in the Marines, where he's, Tom's just one of those guys. He's always fit, always doing all these things, gets up early, makes it all happen. But you know what? It's no easier for him than it is for me. It just looks that way because he's good at it. So This is my area where I struggle. And then the last one is fun goals. And most people listening to this now think, yeah, well, I'll get around to those sometime. Look, that's the stuff that makes all of this enjoyable. So, if you aren't, whatever it is that you care about, your fun goals. Mine happens to be travel. And I have a goal of traveling most of the world to go where they produce wine that's the most beautiful places in the world. And I'm well on that worldwide tour of just seeing, the planet and in this way. This is fun. I look forward to it. It's already planned out for next year and partially planned out for the year before. In 2020, June 2020, June 30th, 2020 at 5 p.m., I have a plan of beginning my series of mini retirements where actually going and living, like in the Barossa Valley in Australia for 2 or 3 months, and living in South Africa for 2 or 3 months, just enjoying all of the things of, the places in the world and the people. That's my plan. Other people want to get the lake house and just hang out there. I don't know what yours is. I mean, I have one doctor whose goal is to go to Disney World every year because it's the happiest place on earth. One of my goals is to never go to another theme park again as long as I live, unless it's with grandkids. That's my only exception. Or one doctor who drags me down there every year because we happen to be right beside it, but he tells me where the good wine is, so I can take it. So, but these are the categories that you want to be working on. Now, let's talk though about how you get it done. Now, I used to work on annual plans. There is a fantastic book called The 12-Week Year by Brian Moran. And I'm actually mentioning the 12-week, the Slight Edge as well. But the 12-Week Year by Brian Moran primarily says the following, and that is they did an enormous amount of research, and they found out that most of the gain, most of the accomplishment in companies happens in the last quarter of the year, and there's a reason. It's the reason that they've done the statistical research. Most of the points in a football game were scored in the last 2 minutes. And the reason is there's a scoreboard and there's a clock. And the clock is running out and you can see the scoreboard. And so when we start in January with our goals for the year, we're pretty chill about it. We're not worried about it because we got a whole year to do it. And so we waste an enormous amount of time. When you read the 12-week year, it talks about the fact that you need to begin to execute in 12-week periods. So remember those 3 primary goals that you're going to be focused on? What the 12-week year teaches is, all right, let's take those 3 goals. Now let's break those down into executable weekly plans to make sure that we achieve those goals. And, the funny thing is I've done this now multiple times, and every time that you break down, no matter how big and scary one of those goals is, when you break it down into we have to do this week, and the next week we have to do this, and then we have to follow this along, they're actually pretty easy to do because they're actually much more simple than we realize. And if we just keep doing these things, and that's the point of The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson, and that is people that are successful do seemingly simple and insignificant things. They just do it every day, every week, every month, every year. They don't stop until they achieve their goal. It's what Danielle said before. If you eat less and you move more, you will lose weight. It's just we don't keep doing it. We decide we're going to meet with our staff because it's really good to have staff meetings, and we do that for 2 weeks in a row. Then we say, well, let's not do it this week because we're really busy, and then we stop. The people that actually do use that essential practice management tool of meeting with their staff in very well-constructed meetings find that they transform their business. It just comes down to, are you going to do it or not? And so what we do is we write our goals down, and I will tell you that in the goal-setting workshop, I will go over the big stumbling blocks that people have about their personal goals, their business goals, their financial goals, all of them. And then you execute in 12-week plans. And in the goal workshop, the goal-setting worksheets, we actually have 12-week plans. Just there they are. Just, here's your plan, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. You'll learn very, very quickly whether or not you're going to get those goals done. Now, here's the thing. As you start all of this, you're going to have enormous resistance against this. That's why you have to block out that 3-hour time to get yourself organized. And then, and this is where people say you've got to be kidding, but they, in the 12-week year, they point out that if you take 3-hour blocks once a week to work on these kinds of issues, your rainmaker time, we like to call that, then that is enough time to accomplish your 12-week plans, to get it done. This is time for just you. So remember, when you sit down, and the reason you haven't done this in the past is, it's like, well, what are your goals? I don't know. I want to look better. I would like world peace. I'd like to have enough to get along. Maybe I want to get a boat, or whatever it is that's your thing. When you sit down to do it, it starts to feel selfish and difficult. That's normal. There's a way to get through that. It can be very hard to sort this out, but once you do, the next step that you're going to have to work on is it's hard to continue, because like Tom said, Tom said the thing years ago about SEO. SEO is at its core just tedious. It's just tedious. Search engine optimization, what they do, it's just doing the things that need to be done. It's changing all the time, but it's not glamorous. It's just tedious. So it's hard to continue. That's the point of the book, The Slight Edge. That's built into the goal workshops that you can listen to. But it's also easy to do, because nothing in here is, requiring you to, get an army or to take out massive loans or do anything like this. It's step by step in 12-week periods. And I just want to say one last thing before I have Tom and Danielle jump in, and then I'll show you the resources. Don't forget those fun goals. I mean, at the end of the day, when you get to, the end of your life, the only thing you will remember, care about, are those personal and those fun goals. You won't remember that you hit these goals and these business goals, or you accomplished this with your patients or whatever. You'll remember the time that you were in Italy. That is a castle that I stayed at in Italy with Diane. That is the little courtyard, which is where we had dinner one night. It's one of the most romantic and wonderful evenings of my whole life. I will remember that forever. Ask me what else was going on in 2005, and I could not possibly tell you. So, Tom and Danielle, I want to give you guys a chance to jump in.
Well, and it's true, because a lot of people don't have fun. They think that it's bad to have fun, and really, it's funny, because I've been talking to a lot of people about this lately that are going through some struggles about balance, about having balance in your life, and it all is all those things, and we struggle in each one of those areas. And what happens is that we say, oh, we're doing poorly in business, so we got to go put our nose to the grindstone and focus everything on business for the sake of everything else. And usually the first things that get cut out are fun and personal, because financial is part of the business, and so focusing on that. And of course, then health. Everybody will throw away a fitness program or a diet program under stress and whatnot. And so what happens is that you build this cycle of not being in balance, which causes stress, and then it causes more imbalance. So, and once again, the goals should be focused on making sure that each one of those areas is covered. A goal should be, or many goals, or it just depends upon how you set yourself up or what works for you, because there's not one way to do this. You're going to have your personal goals, you're going to have your business goals, you're going to have your financial goals, you're going to have your health goals, and you're going to have your fun goals. And making sure that you're treating each one of those equally important is really the pathway to success, because you have to be motivated to do it. And a lot of people don't do the fun part, and then they wonder why they're so miserable, and then they're dead. Right, Danielle?
Yeah.
What's that for a segue?
So speaking about eventually being dead, no, what you're saying, well, that's the whole point here, is it's not about the end, because we're all going to end up the same way. So you do have to enjoy it as you go. And part of enjoying it as you go is having a business that you enjoy and being happy and profitable in that business that you enjoy. And that allows you to have more fun. And Rem, I really want to echo what you said earlier about when you sit down to write your goals and recalibrate your goals, don't think you're going to do that on the nights or on the weekends. That is your time for yourself. It is your time with your family. It is your time to do something else. Make a business appointment with yourself. Set that time aside. I love the idea of a regular meeting, weekly, monthly, however often it needs to be, with yourself to look at those goals and see how you're going and make changes as necessary, because you absolutely need that time, your nights, your weekends, your vacations away, to have time away, both mentally and physically. And I'll tell you, I know that as much of a workaholic as I am, I need that time away. I need quiet. I need time away from tasks and chores, whether they be business or personal. And you've got to have time to think, and you've got to have time to exist in the moment and appreciate your life and make sure that you're on the right path.
Yep.
Well, that's for sure. Now, I want to take you guys and show you some resources here. So the first one is, these are the goal setting worksheets for top practices that you guys are going to send the follow-up materials and let everybody know exactly how to find this. But as you'll see, and I'm not going to just scroll down through this, but we talk about the getting organized and how to pull it all together, the 1, 2, 3, getting to your top 3 goals, moving on to the one thing, and then we'll move on to goals. We'll move on to actually action plans, 12-week plans. It's all built inside this. And where you'll be able to find it, and again, you'll be getting your pathway to this, is right at the wonderful Top Practices website, which is, of course, produced by none other than Foster Web Marketing. You will see the Top Practices Goal Setting Workshops. The link to the Goal Workshops worksheets are there, and then there's 6 20.
We lost you, Rem.
Summer to prepare all of my attendees for the Top Practices Summit to be able to come ready for the summit with their goals written down and prepared to be handed out to others that we're working together on. It was an unmitigated success. It was fantastic. And one last thing, down at the bottom, you'll see how to prepare for the summit. Now, you're going to think, I don't need to really check into that. That's me and Dr. Peter Wishney talking about the Top Practices Summit when it was 2.5 months away. But this is, we actually ended up calling this the Making It Rain call, because not only did we talk about how to prepare for the particular summit that we had, but we also talked about, it really came down to how really professionals do that 3-hour program, how they get themselves ready so that they can and be rainmakers and actually make their one thing happen, make their one thing culminate, because they're focused. So these are resources that will be available to you, which I'm happy to provide to everybody. And again, Tom and Danielle, make sure you know how to get it in a follow-up after this call. So, hey, listen, guys, that's what I can share with you on goal setting. I hope it was helpful.
It was fantastic, Remy. Thank you as always. And yeah, as we'll be sending out all of this information, I mean, really, we only had a little bit of time to get into it, but there's so much great information here on your website. We're going to send this out to people and share it with them to help them do their goals. And it's perfect timing, as I said at the beginning of this webinar, that thinking into the next year. And another thing that you always point out that we talk about when we're together and in conferences is that don't get yourself all worked up about what else is going on in the world that you have no control over. There's a lot of junk going on right now, and it's not that we don't want to ignore it. That's not what I'm saying, but you can control what you can control, and the best way that you can give back is to focus on being successful, focus on your goals, because that'll help you be in a good place for your thinking, a good place for your actions, your activities, and that's really the best way that you can make a difference. So, Remy, once again, thank you very much for joining us today. Thanks for sharing with us, and I look forward to seeing you soon. And I hope you have a fantastic holiday, Danielle.
Same to you. Same to both of you, and thanks for the invitation. It was my pleasure.
And thanks to everybody that joined us for the webinar this month. We will have we'll have another one next month, as we always do. And the next one is going to be cool, because we'll have Buster Tate talking about force multipliers and how to really take, your goals, turn those into action items and the things that can really That's why they're called force multipliers. How you can really take things that you want to do and make them use, good inertia and use leverage to get them there to achieve your goals much faster. Happy holidays, everybody. Happy New Year. And thanks, as always, for attending. I wish you the very best. Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.